Man, Bill, I'll tell you what, man, it's not all the time we've got a world-class coach, world-class athlete on our little bitty podcast, right? Talking about really cool things they've done in their lifetime. But man, that was a blast.
You know, he's one of those guys whose story is one of the more interesting ones you'll probably ever hear. But I think what's even more interesting is how the lessons he learned there ties back to how to become a better leader, better person. Just great stuff in there. Just really an interesting conversation.
Well, I think right after we got done recording the podcast, I think I said something to you like, man, just coaches have a way to really simplify things, right?
Yep.
Like get everything down to like 3 points or 4 points or whatever. And there's something to be said about that. And that's what Coach Matt Doherty does here. So you guys are going to really enjoy our conversation with Coach Matt Doherty with Doherty Coaching. Enjoy, guys. Coach Doherty, I'll call you Coach, man. It's not every day we have, or ever, I should say, ever we have like a world-class athlete, world-class coach on our podcast. So privileged to have you on here and chat for sure. But first off, man, just
wait a second. Who are you talking to?
We're talking about you, man. We're talking about you. You can't hide on this little screen.
Who are you talking to?
So dive in, Coach. Tell us your story, right? We're going to get into what you're doing in the dental community, but tell us your story from the beginning there.
Yeah. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. And I just wish I was there with you guys in Springfield. I'd go to Bass Pro Shop and go get me a spinning reel and find the nearest pond and catch some bass. Maybe that's how we should do the next show. I grew up on Long Island and was fortunate to be a good basketball player and be recruited to the University of North Carolina, where I was coached by a legendary coach, Dean Smith. And we won a national championship in 1982 with a guy named Michael Jordan. And started on that team, started 3 years at North Carolina, thought I was going to play in the NBA, got cut, worked on Wall Street, hated it, moved on, got into coaching basketball, was an assistant at Davidson with Bob McKillop, who went on to be Steph Curry's coach, and Bob coached me in high school. And then I went on to work for Roy Williams for 7 years at Kansas, so I know the Midwest very well. I know Missouri very well. I know Springfield fairly well, Southwest Missouri State, now Missouri State, where you both, I think, graduated from. Had great basketball with Charlie Spoonhour and Steve Alford and the like, Conzo Martin. Was there 7 years, and then I became the head coach at Notre Dame. I thought I'd be there forever. I'm Irish Catholic from New York. I thought I'd be there forever. And then after 1 year, the coach at North Carolina at the time, Bill Guthridge, retired after my 1 year. And Roy Williams was offered the job, turned it down, stayed at Kansas. And then Michael Jordan, Dean Smith recruited me to take the job. I did. My first year, we ranked number 1 in the country. I was National Coach of the Year. We beat Duke at Duke, a lot of good things. And then next year, and I knew we were going to have a rough year because you know what's in the funnel. You know, you guys run a business. You know what's in your pipeline. And we weren't good. And then my third year was rebuilding, and my starting center, Sean May, broke his foot, and we didn't make the tournament. People questioned my leadership, and they ousted me and brought in Roy Williams. So at that point, I really, I think when you deal with failure, you have two choices. You can get bitter or get better. And I decided to get better as an athlete. You're used to failing in a public manner. Like there's no shame in it. The shame is if you stay down and you don't try to get better. So as an athlete and a coach, we're always looking at the film and watching to get better, even in victory. And so I said, all right, well, I had a good friend, a mentor, a guy named John Black in Charlotte, North Carolina, said, you should go study leadership, take a year off, study leadership. And so I went to Wharton, went to the Darden School just for week-long seminars, week-long classes. I worked with a couple of executive coaches, and I realized, oh, my gosh, there's more to this leadership thing than a whistle around your neck and telling guys to get on the baseline and being the boss. There's transactional leadership and transformational leadership. And so I then wanted to put my lessons and my work back to work, and I became the head coach at FAU in Florida, and then SMU in Dallas. And after 6 years, I didn't win enough at SMU and moved on. And so in the back of my mind, I'd work with executive coaches, and I was so passionate about leadership, I didn't want people to step on the landmines I stepped on. And, I think even going deeper is that we all have to find our purpose in life. And I think those of us that can find your purpose and give it away, I forget whose quote that was, but finding your purpose and giving it away, that's like true happiness. And so you're not really working. And so to be a teacher and a coach, I am now a teacher and coach of business owners and not basketball players. But it's the same feeling I get when I work with a team. I'll do peer groups, have 10 to 15 in a group. It's like I'm running a practice or a game, and then I'll do one-to-one coaching, and that's like working with a player after practice on their foul shooting or jump shooting or ball handling. And to see improvement in people who want to be coached, who want to grow, that brings a connection. And when you see that growth, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It is pretty darn rewarding.
So, Coach, there's a ton of places we can jump off there. I mean, I've jotted down some notes here already of things I want to cover. But I think we really got to go back to the beginning because you kind of hit on it quickly. But I really want to unpack some of the lessons you learned because you've been around world-class coaches and world-class people, I mean, in a lot of ways. And I know that as a young man that had to shape a lot of who you are, how you see the world, your leadership, your ability to relate, especially now as you're dealing with dentist practice owners. Walk us through some of those lessons you learned early on dealing with the likes of Dean Smith, being around Michael Jordan, Roy Williams, those guys. Tell us a little bit about that.
To be a teacher and a coach, like Dean Smith was a teacher. So in a practice, in a film session, he was talking about different positions on defense, and he said the player that's farthest away is the goaltender. We were talking about trapping. And he stopped, and he said, "You know why I said farther instead of further?" And, why I said farthest instead of furthest. And, we're 19, 20-year-old guys like, no, And he said, because far deals with distance, F-A-R. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I've never forgotten that. So as I say this to you, I am impacted by Dean Smith today as a 64-year-old man, and he's been passed away for several years. Like that impact, like you want to have that impact. Like what is our legacy? What's your legacy? What's my legacy? And my mission in life is to make a positive impact on the people I meet and the groups I work with while dropping breadcrumbs to the Lord. And so I think going back, I was so blessed to grow up as the son of Mary and Walter Darity in East Meadow, Long Island, with 3 older sisters and a younger brother, going to Catholic schools, being coached by some great coaches. Like I'm talking about, like Bob McKillop was my high school coach my first 2 years, 9th and 10th grade.
That's crazy.
I had my dad signed me up for basketball camp in 4th grade, bought me my first jock, and I remember to this day we're in a green Ford Galaxy 500 Landau roof. And he went to Nescott Drugs, bought me a jock. It was a swimmer's jock, it had the small band. Now nobody knows jocks anymore. And so as he's handing it, my dad was a minor league baseball player. And he was a great athlete in high school. Never talked about it, but he if you asked him about it, he'd talk to you, but he didn't brag. And as he's handing me the jock, he says, "When a coach is giving you instruction, don't say I know." 4th grade. And so what he was telling me was be coachable, and he also was probably telling me, don't be a know-it-all. Like I probably had a little know-it-all in me. And I remember fast forward when my son was like in 3rd, 4th grade, I'm throwing the football with him in the yard. and I trying to teach him how to catch, and he's got all the answers. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me when I was in 4th grade. That's why my dad told me, don't say I know. So we don't like being around know-it-alls, right? As a coach, you don't want, as a boss, you don't want to try to help somebody and they say, I got it, I know. And I'm like, like that's not somebody's being coachable. So my dad was the first one. And then I had the Coleman brothers in CYO ball. And I went to camps every summer. And, from Gus Alfree's All-American camp to Reverend Vischer's camp, and getting taught. And I would come home and there's day camps, and we had the old marble notebook with the times table on the back. And I would make a notes of the drills and things that I would learn that day because I didn't want to forget it. I wanted to carry it forward to when the camp was over and we were in August. I wanted to be able to look at that as a reference to continue to get better. And so I was blessed, and then I had the Knicks and the Nets and the Mets and the Giants, the Mets and the Yankees, the Islanders and the Rangers. I had St. John's University. I had Hofstra. I had all these schools and these players that I could watch on TV, and then I can go mimic it on the court the next day, even by myself. And that's the thing I loved about basketball. I didn't need anybody else to help myself get better. Now, a guy who's maybe the greatest basketball player ever from the state of Missouri, all right, this is a pop quiz for you guys. Who would that be? Oh, geez.
Go Hansborough, maybe?
No,
somebody better than Hansborough?
Yeah, Bill Bradley.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bill Bradley, yeah. Bill Bradley played for the Knicks, played at Princeton, and he had a book that was titled Life on the Run. And in the book, he said, if you're not working on your game and somebody else is, when you two meet, that other person will have the advantage. And I read that, and I quit baseball the next day. And this was in like 6th grade. And my dad was a minor league pitcher. But I wanted to be the best basketball player that I could, and I wanted to give myself the advantage. And so I was blessed just to have great coaches and understand teamwork, drive, passion, competition. There's a park near my house. I talk about it a lot, Prospect Park. And, you showed up, you got on a team, you chose sides, you lost, you sat, you win, you stayed. Real quick, you had to develop a team chemistry. You had to figure out, okay, who's the leader on this team? Is it him? Okay, I got to listen to him. Is it me? Do I step forward? So understanding self-awareness, leader, follower, maybe in a span of 30 minutes, you go from following to leading because of the different dynamics on a different team. And I think all those things have prepared me to play, coach, and now, lead a dental cohort.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier that I've jotted down. You said something like, I want to help other people uncover or see the landmines that I stepped on.
Yes.
Unpack that a bit more. I'm assuming you're talking about your time as a coach, because my question was going to be like, what are the hard things you learned, or what things did you learn the hard way as a coach? Yeah. Unpack that a bit.
Well, I wrote this book, Rebound, From Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned. And that was the main crux of it. I grew up Irish Catholic. I'm like, we're kind of beaten into us, like, stay humble, and I'm like, I don't want to write a book. I've had people say, write a book. I don't want to write a book. And then I probably justified it by saying, if one person was impacted by it, maybe it's worth it. And I wanted to write the things down that everybody goes through in business, because people, when I became an executive coach about 6 years ago, business owners would say, well, what do you know about business? Right? People could say to me now, what do you know about dentistry? And I said, well, as a basketball coach, at North Carolina, Notre Dame, two of the biggest brands in the world, I had to raise money. I had to recruit talent. I had to coach talent. I had to hold it accountable. I had a weekly P&L, which was my one loss record. I had a board of directors, and I had the media, and I had financial statements. Our budget was, I don't know, $10 million a year. And so, as I got to that point, people say, okay, I get it. And so, understanding the business side. But I wrote this book because I'm a teacher. I can not coach, and I can not teach. And if you're getting ready to walk off a cliff, I'm going to run up to you, Jared, and say, "Hey, Jared, you're getting ready to run off the cliff. Stop. Turn around. Let's talk about this." Some people just want to run off the cliff. I don't want other people to run off the cliff. I don't want people to drive off the cliff. I want to teach them to be better drivers and take the turns the right way and understand that there's going to be some landmines out there and how to anticipate the landmines. And so if you might still step on one or two, and instead of getting totally blown up, maybe you just, you're still alive, but you lose a finger instead of your whole arm. And then what can we learn from that? And so that is why I wrote the book and why I became an executive coach. There's so many, as I was touching on, translatable skills from sports to business. And when you read a good business book, leadership book, it often has sports references in it. Like we got to huddle up. We got to get the ball across the goal line. We've got to, we keep score. We've got to define our roles. We've got to deal with, the setbacks. We got to bounce back. We got to rebound. All those things. There's so many sports analogies. And I do think, and this sounds self-serving, but those people that have played a sport, a team sport ideally, and there's no proof to this, but I think are better prepared for the workplace.
I agree.
Because they've dealt with failure. I think the biggest thing we learn in sports is how to deal with failure and come back and be thirsty to get better.
Well, I think that's a great place to kind of unpack a little bit further, because that's one thing I'm really intrigued to hear your take on, Coach, is building a team, because that's what you did, and that was the product that you put on the court was the product you got judged by, just like a business. The people they put forth into the world, the dental practice, is what they're going to get judged by in the marketplace and by people's checkbooks. So what philosophically and practically, how do you look at building a team, and how should dentists look at it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love talking about this topic. I talk about, I give keynote talks and I talk about driving a championship culture, and let me step away for a second, because some of the audience might be, that you're not explaining how you got into dentistry. And so I got into executive coaching. I went through the John Maxwell Leadership Training Program. I went to Vistage Leadership Training Program. I'm a Vistage chair right now. And so Vistage is one of the oldest executive coaching organizations in the country. And so I learned some things, how to run peer groups, had to do one-to-one coaching. And I'm a coach. I'm not a consultant. There's a fine line between that. So, and then in my Vistage teams, I realized I had 4 dentists in 2 different groups. And I saw their struggles, real struggles, like verge of bankruptcy, personal challenges, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what is it with these dentists? And I realized that they are, in my view, and and this has been confirmed by other people, but I'm like, I had to test this out. Like, all right, you are the product and service. You're the revenue engine for that practice. So if you're not in someone's mouth working on their teeth, you feel like you're not driving revenue. Well, when you're doing that, you cannot be observing the business that is going on behind your back. Okay? And when do you have time then to follow up on emails? When do you have time to look at the books? When do you have time to hire? When do you have time to train? Okay? And then, so that was the biggest thing. And then, to maybe make a little, joke, but they went to dental school, not business school. Yeah. Right? So, and they enter the marketplace with massive debt. Like, who else goes into their first job 300 to 500K in debt? Nobody. Not, besides a doctor, the doctor's dentist, same grouping, right? Nobody else. Lawyers go in with some debt, but not that kind of debt. And so now the pressure's on, the expectation of, I've got to own a practice. Oh, that's more debt. Now I'm responsible for a team and a practice. Probably married, got to have a nice car, got to have a BMW, right? Got to be a part of a country club. So now the debt, continues to grow, and now revenue, they think revenue is good. Now profit's good. Revenue's not necessarily good. Profit's good. And so, I'm talking to two accountants here, so you guys get it. And so when I saw their struggles, I felt that, okay, let's do this and get the dentists together in a peer advisory group and add value and coach them to be better business owners, business leaders, and putting a good team together. So one of the foundational things for me, I call it the organizational triangle. If you could see that. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, that's my St. Raphael's Grammar School handwriting right there. Yeah. Sister Maureen taught me how to write like that. No, kidding. But so what is that? Organizational triangle: talent, systems, and culture. All right? Talent, systems, and culture. And I say culture is king. But the better systems you have, the better culture you have. And see, I'm a coach. I can't help but have like diagrams. So the better systems you have and the better culture you have, that base widens as your organization grows, the better talent you support. You support the talent with strong systems and strong culture. So now you're recruiting better talent. All right, you're training the talent. You're retaining better talent. And I think people at the end of the day stay because there's a good culture. And I've seen teams with good systems, good talent, but a bad culture not be successful. See it in sports all the time. Conversely, we've seen average talent, average systems, great culture be very successful. So going back to how do you build a good team, it starts with your culture. Like, what's the vision you want for your practice? Some people don't know. All right, you got to create that vision. All right, I think CEOs are empowered with three things: casting the vision, driving the culture, and engaging in large business transactions. Casting the vision. We did this as athletes all the time. You dreamed about winning a championship. I dreamed about hitting the game winner. I dreamed about the cutting down the nets. I dreamed about the parade down. I visioned this. I felt it. That's powerful. And then you write, you write that down, you document that. And then we talked about the mission statement earlier: make a positive impact on the people I meet and the groups I work with. Okay, great. Now, core values. This goes back to the culture, the foundation, core values. What are your core values? And when I speak, do a lot of public speaking, one of the first questions when I'm talking about culture is I'll ask, okay, who here has core values? And, basically every hand goes up. And then I go, okay, what are your core values? And you guys, you hear a guy go, humana, like, and they start looking at the ceiling, and they start guessing, and then I'm like, yeah, see, that's the problem. All right. It looks pretty. I call it wall art. So let's take the wall art and activate the wall art into behaviors. All right. And so what are your core values? You've got to leverage them on a daily basis. So we had a great speaker at Vistage, and a really good book for those in the audience, Culture by Design by David Friedman. And he really unlocked this in my mind. He came to speak to one of our peer groups. And as he talked, and I was on his podcast, it made me think of Dean Smith. Okay, so how do you build a team? This is going back to how do you build a team? It's got to start with core values. You've got to have something that you're recruiting to, your vision, your purpose. Where are you going? What do you want this practice to look like? And how do you want your players to play together? So Dean Smith had play hard, play smart, play together. Those are the core values. Okay, 3 of them. Simple. You should not have more than 4. Why? How many numbers are in a Social Security number?
9.
9. Okay. You didn't say that with great confidence, but anyway. So
we always redact that information for our clients, so we don't know for sure.
They're not really. There are 3 groups of numbers of 3, 2, and 4. Right?
Yeah.
They're not 9 numbers in a row. There's 3, 2, and 4. Why aren't there 5 and 4? Why aren't there 9? Because we can't remember more than 4 things. And once you get to 5, you don't remember 1. Like mentally, you cannot do that. And so they break it up to 3 numbers, 2 numbers, and 4 numbers. Why are phone numbers? Phone numbers are 7 digits long, but they're really 3 and 4 digits long. You can remember 3 to 4. They don't have them, as 7. So breaking it up and having core values to be 3 or 4, short, either one word or like my personal ones are respect, trust, commitment, positivity, RTCP. All right, I talk about it all the time. So you recruit to your core values. I don't care how talented you are. See, this is how do you build a team? It starts in the recruiting process. Okay? You're not going to change someone's behavior drastically enough to assimilate to your team. So I had a sports psych, and this is the neat thing about what I do. There's a book out called Range where, at times I'm like, oh my gosh, I've worked on Wall Street. I coached college basketball. I did some TV, worked in the front office of the NBA. Like all these things build upon each other. So the range of experiences I've had, I think, aid me in my role as an executive coach. So, thinking about recruiting to your core values. All right. Dean Smith, play hard, play smart, play together. And you preach to that. And in the process, some people would be turned off by it. Some people would lean into it. So, my point earlier I was getting ready to make is working for the Indiana Pacers, we had a sports psychologist, and he said the only predictor of future behavior is past behavior. We don't interview for past behaviors. Most doctors don't know how to interview. We have the recency bias. We like the resume. Oh, they went to UNC dental school. Oh, yeah, they must be a good guy because I went there. And they like to play golf. Oh, great. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously they have the clinical skills. You don't know if they're moody. You don't know if they're selfish. You don't know if they take instruction. You don't know if they're going to fight through adversity. You don't know any of that. So we hire for hard skills, fire for soft skills. Why not hire for soft skills? Especially the office work, because you can teach somebody how to answer the phones. You can teach somebody, a computer system. You can teach somebody, but you can't teach somebody to be in a good mood all the time. You can't teach somebody to smile all the time. You can't teach somebody how to bounce back from, I don't know, COVID, bounce back from being disciplined, bounce back from a bad patient experience.
So what you're saying is hire for culture first, a culture fit, not talent first, and then teach them that if you have good systems, it's easy to teach the systems to the team.
That's right. Dennis, and I was reading a book on dentistry. You Don't Know Spit is the name of the book, Dr. Moniker in Charlotte. And, he basically said the same thing, how many patients know if some dentist put on the crown properly? I know if a shot hurts or it doesn't hurt, but most shots hurt. So once I'm numbed up, I don't know what they're doing in there. They can show me. I can't tell you if it's in right or not. But I can tell you if I had a good experience the moment I walked in the door to the moment I left. I can tell you if I like the people. And so you recruit to the soft skills. Dentists are going to have qualifications. They're going to be certified. They're going to have their boards. They're going to have gone to a certain school. All right. Now, would you like working with them? Would a patient like working with them? So some people are so nervous because it's tough to find good people. It's tough to find, like there's a hygienist squeeze, right? I mean, hygienists are getting paid $70 an hour in some places. So if somebody can fog a mirror, they're desperate. You should always be recruiting. Like always recruit. You don't recruit just when you need the position filled. All right. You're always recruiting. You're like, oh man, do you know somebody else? Get them going, get them in the pipeline, get to know them, meet them for lunch, meet them, get to know people. Front desk person. I'm always recruiting, like in a restaurant, you have a good server. Like, tell me about yourself. What do you want to do with your life, with your career? And it's okay if you want to stay in the restaurant business, but you got a skill set that we can use in my dental office, right? And so I have a banker. I had a banker who, one of his best bankers that he hired, a president of a bank, was in ticket sales for the Charlotte Hornets, right? You teach them about loans. It's hard to teach about selling. So recruiting to those core values. And Dean Smith did that very well. And he weeded out some talented players. When he came into my home and he said, our core values, we play hard, we play smart, we play together. And then he talked more about it. And that's the way I grew up. And, it was all about winning. And then he said to me in front of my parents and my high school coach and his assistants were there. And he's like, you'll be lucky to play by the time you're a junior. And I remember I leaned into that. And I said to myself, I'll show you. And there's a player who was an All-American the next year who I got to know after, Adrian Branch, who, funny guy, great player at Maryland, played with Lenny Bias and played in the NBA. And he said, he played at DeMatha High School, great high school in D.C., and he said, Coach Smith came into my home and said the same thing. And when he said that to me, I said to myself, I'm out. I'm going to Maryland. and I showed him my ring. My senior year, we were 14-0. And I don't know if I ever lost to Maryland. I think I lost to Maryland one time in 4 years. So character wins championships. We used to say character wins championships. You recruit to those core values, and you might say, yes, oh my gosh, my pool of candidates just shrunk by 50%. Yes, it probably did. But of those 50% remaining, the stickiness will be unbelievable. People want to be part of good teams.
Well, it's fair to say, though, that would you agree that usually the most talented team doesn't win the championships?
That's right.
Yeah.
The NBA coach said to me one time, the best players don't always make up the best teams, but the best teams always win.
Yeah. Yeah. So go into a little bit. You kind of went through like the transition to dentistry. Why don't you go a little bit more into like the specific cohorts that you're doing?
Yeah.
Like you talked about them being all together, but give a little more detail on what that looks like so the viewers
Yes.
can hear.
So what we do is we meet once a month virtually, the first Friday of every month. So in my other practice, I had dentists, but it was hard to get them to commit to, meet all day on a Tuesday, once a month. Why? Because they need to be in a chair, right? But when are dentists off? Most dentists are off on Friday. So I'm no dummy. So I'm like, all right, we're going to have the cohort. We meet for 4 hours Friday from 9 o'clock Eastern to 1 o'clock. And at least every other month we bring in a speaker. And so we had a speaker on AI. Actually, it was a member of the cohort. Had a speaker on AI. We had a speaker on mergers and acquisitions, like getting your practice ready for sale. It's like anything else, you want to prepare now, not the year or the month before you're ready to sell. It's like preparing your house for a sale. You better, look at the foundation. You better paint the house. You better, cut the grass. You do things to prepare your company for sale. And so we'll bring in speakers for an hour. Q&A, and then basically I run an issue processing session. Let me back up. We update our numbers. I think it's so important in your dentist that they understand their KPIs and key numbers like EBITDA or their revenue and expenses, basic numbers, but got to know where they are. Where's the leakage? Right? Where are things getting away from them? All of a sudden you realize, my expenses are going up. Okay, what are your top 10 expenses? Oh, I didn't realize I was paying that on a monthly basis. Okay, let's talk about it, right? So going through your numbers, all the dentists will fill in those KPIs the day before into a spreadsheet that we shared, and then we'll go through that, and they have goals, and the ones that aren't meeting goal, they put in red. I took that from EOS. I know you had an EOS speaker. I looked at your, back in 2021, I think you had somebody who was an EOS implementer. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in EOS. And so understanding your scoreboard. Dentistry is a contact sport. You got to know the score. And so where are you? Month to month. Are you running the business or the business running you? So we go through those numbers and we hold each other accountable and we ask questions. Where else can a dentist do that on a monthly basis? Maybe they have a bookkeeper, maybe with you, your CPA, but with a peer group, it's pretty powerful. And then we process issues. We ask them to check in. We do a quick check-in and something will surface. Like, I'm having a hard time with my associate. Or, I hear my associate, I think he wants to be a partner. And I don't know if I want to give him a partnership. Who else is a dentist going to talk to about that? So I'm like, okay, let's process that issue. And then we go through that issue. I call it putting them on the hot seat. Put them on the hot seat. I organize it. I run it. I don't let it get out of control, right? So we ask questions. And then they make suggestions, and then he picks the answers that he liked, the suggestions he liked, and then I will hold him accountable to a due date. And then I ask in the group who will volunteer to be his or her accountability partner. And if no one volunteers, then they get voluntold. And so, And then I grade the meeting with everybody afterwards, and they're like 8s and 9s. And words like freeing, exhilarating, hopeful. There's two things that peer groups help with. One, isolation relief. Who can they talk to a dentist, a business owner, a head basketball coach, where they can be vulnerable, all right, and not get judged. And then 2, impostor syndrome. Because so many people, even the great ones, have doubt. You know, there's doubt. Can I make this shot? Can I win this championship? Can I pull this off? Can I run this practice? Can I be successful? And the negative self-talk is wicked. And so that goes back to being a player growing up. Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I wrote a second book, and I feel like I'm plugging myself too much here, but called the Timeout Journal, because I felt journaling helped me, and I started journaling about 2 years ago, and put in affirmations, because the person we spend the most time with is ourselves. And we can say nasty things to ourselves that we wouldn't say to other people. So we got to learn to say good things about ourselves, to ourselves. We got to learn to forgive ourselves and show ourselves grace. And so that's part of my coaching too, right? I'm the encourager. We all need a peer advisory group. And so whether it's a financial, like you guys, right? Everyone should have a CPA, a financial, invest your money, spiritual, business coach. We need that. And that ends up, when you have that stuff aligned, you can have a peace of mind, a peace, a flow state, where then you could show up. That all impacts your business. How you walk through the door for that, let's call it a 7:30 team huddle with your dental staff, how you show up sets the tone for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year.
So, Coach, specific to your room, but also just in general, how important is it for the owners to not have that quote-unquote I know attitude?
Well, listen, I interview them. So going back to, it's a great question, because you kind of touched on building a team. My cohort is my team. I'm the head coach. And I interview them. Not everyone gets in. Like, just because you have the money and you want to in? No. It's a club. It's a special club. And I've told people no before in a peer group. Somebody went, no, I could tell you got too big of an ego. You're a know-it-all. Going back to my dad's comment when I was in 4th grade, I don't want know-it-alls in my group. I want people who are hungry to learn and hungry to help. And you say, well, I'm paying you and I'm going to help others. I don't get it. Well, in helping others, you help yourself, because you're learning lessons that person either is going through, that you may go through in the future, or you've gone through, and it reinforces. Again, I go back to leadership as a practice. I always say that leadership is a practice. So by you reinforcing it to somebody else verbally, it gets reinforced to you, right? So I talk to you about culture and core values. Well, that just gets more embedded in my DNA, so that when I go lead my organization, my executive coaching practice, Darity Coaching, that I need to stick to those core values that I shared with you, because I'm preaching about it. So you preach about what you need sometimes, and by helping others, you help yourself. So I talk about our core values: respect, trust, commitment, positivity. You'll show respect in the room. All right. There's trust. You won't, what's said in the room stays in the room. You'll be committed to personal growth and the growth of your teammates, and you'll bring a positive attitude. I don't want energy suckers on my team. I want energy givers. And so if you can't meet that, then I don't want you. And if you step across those lines, those boundaries, I'm going to address it. It's probably the first time a dentist has ever been told that in their lives.
They sit up a little straight in their seat, right?
Yeah. But I think, the people who don't want it, that's fine. The people who do, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's end on one more question. I jotted down a note that you said at the beginning of the episode, and I think I'm going to say this right, but you said there's two different types of leadership: transactional versus transformational.
Good catch.
Explain
Good
the difference
catch.
between those two.
Well, I was going to give you guys an award. Whoever came up with that, picked up on that first, I was going to give an award. So, Jared, you get the award.
Hey, I did jot it down. Come on now.
Listen,
You know, I didn't really understand that term. And this is where we all should be lifelong learners. Our lives are impacted by three things: the people we meet, the books we read, or the podcasts, and the trauma in our life. And I was listening to Phil Jackson on a podcast, talked about transformational coaching versus transactional coaching. And I look back on my career, and probably when at times I was probably too much of a transactional coach. And what is that? Is let's say for dentists, well, I need a front desk person. I need 2 hygienists. I need 2 assistants. And I need someone to manage the money and sell productions, production. Yeah, right now that's what I need. Okay. And then you get those people and you have them do their job. You hold them accountable to the job. But you're not teaching and coaching. You're a manager, a boss, not a coach. And I challenge my clients to take the manager, boss hat off and put a coaching hat on. So what would a coach say versus a boss? A boss sometimes is, I got you, versus a coach is saying, all right, Jared, help me understand. Let's talk about this. Why didn't you pay that bill on time? Tell me what went into the thinking for that. Well, they might have an answer where you're like, whoa, that's okay. That's pretty good. Help me understand. I had a player do this. So let me say, Bill, you showed up to work late. You show up to work late. And then there's a break. And I'll take you, say, let's talk in the break room. But why did you show up to work late today? Well, I had this, I had that. Okay. What are our core values, Bill? Respect, trust, commitment, positivity. What one might you have violated? Respect, trust, commitment. At least those 3. Yes. If you were me, what would you do? Well, I'd probably kind of scold me in front of the team a little bit and maybe put a note in my file. If I do it again, I get suspended or fined or disciplined in some way. Okay, good. Let's do that. Right? So that's coaching versus being a boss or a leader. So now hopefully Bill learns from that experience, grows from that experience, as opposed to, I got you, Bill, you were late, I'm pissed, or I don't talk to you about it and you're late again and now I just get mad at you for doing something else. So the transformational coach cares about the whole person. Like, I also should get to know Bill. Like, Bill, tell me, what are your interests? What are your goals, Bill? Do you want to be a hygienist or do you want to be a dentist? Like, I see a dentist in you. My wife was a dental hygienist in Atlanta. She started out as like an office assistant. And the doctor saw in her that she had the ability to be a hygienist and encouraged her to go to hygiene school. And she did. That's transformational. He transformed her life. And as a basketball coach, that's why I got into coaching, because I want to transform the lives of young men like Dean Smith and Bob McKillop and Dick Zeitler did for me. And so now I pivoted to dentistry, and I want to transform the lives of the men and women I work with. And when I do, there's a doctor in Charlotte that, it's been a challenge for a couple of years for him, but I've helped him.
Yeah.
And that's transformational coaching versus transactional coaching.
Well, you can tell you have passion for what you do. And if you guys remember watching Coach Doherty play back in the day or coach back in the day, there's some good YouTube videos out there showing that passion too. He gives a damn about what he does. So
yeah, Coach, I give a damn about what I do. That's a pretty good line. I might have to use that on my my website. I give a damn about what I do. I like that.
That
Darity
sounds like the next
coaching.
title to your book, man. That's the next title to
I
it.
give a damn about what I do.
Why
Amen.
don't you, let's wrap it up here, Coach. How can people reach out to you? How can they get to know more about what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. My website is Darity Coaching, DOHERTY, coaching.com, or they can email me at matt@daritycoaching.com. And, I do the dental cohort. I do workshops, and I speak at different associations. A lot of people will be at Dykema this summer. I'm going to do an event for Tusk partners, practice sales. And so I just am passionate, I give a damn about what I do.
I love it. Coach, this has been great. We'll put all that information in the show notes. They can reach out to you directly. Love it. First world-class athlete, first world-class coach on this. I appreciate it, man. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.